0538 local time, over the Persian Gulf, two U.S. Navy A-18E Super Hornets are screaming toward the Iranian coast at 200 feet, 30 minutes into a strike run against a power station standing next door to Iran's only operating nuclear plant. Unknown to the pilots, an S-300 PMU-2 battery is dug in against that reactor's fence with its launchers already vertical, crewed by the most rehearsed air defense team in Iran. And whether this strike succeeds comes down to coordinates chosen in a targeting cell days ago. 40 miles from the beach, an Iranian early warning radar sweeps its beam straight across their position and paints nothing. On a screen 30 miles inland, the sky over the Gulf reads empty. It's not. Two jets, 44,000 pounds each, towing rooster tails off the wave tops at 480 knots, and the return comes back clean. That beam travels in a straight line. The Earth doesn't. So every antenna in Iran is standing on a hill it can't see over. It's like ducking below the kitchen counter to hide from a window across the street. The planners who drew this route assumed every surviving radar on this coast would be looking. After 11 days of strikes, the ones still alive sit 30 to 60 miles behind the beach, up on masts 100 feet tall. Against a jet at 200 feet, a mast that height goes blind past 30 miles, so the route lives at 200 feet, all of it. Flying there costs. A Seagull off the shallows is a meat missile with feathers at 480 knots, and one twitch of the stick ends the mission in a white column of spray. Nobody transmits. Below them, a fisherman on a limping dhow gets the only close look Iran will ever have. The pilots of Spear 1-1 flight pay all of it without blinking, because down here altitude is the whole game. The plan has exactly one hole, and the hole is standing on the beach. On a headland south of Bushehr city, inside a cab under a turning antenna, an Iranian operator is 3 years into a drone war. The most interesting thing his radar has painted since sunrise is that same fisherman still limping home. Then two hard returns bloom at the edge of his coverage, side by side, running at 480 knots. They hold through the next sweep and the next. Ofo, Persian for horizon, Iran's coastal surveillance radar, and the only antenna on this coast pointed at the water instead of over it. Every inland radar the Hornets ducked was built to watch the sky. This one hunts the surf line. It holds small contacts and tells the batteries where to look. And the trick that blinds every mast behind the ridgeline is the exact thing it exists to see. Nobody sneaks across a swimming pool past the lifeguard, and the job carries a price he's already accepted. Over the net, his track lights up a console at the battery parked against the nuclear plant's perimeter, the most rehearsed air defense crew in Iran, the men whose fence the entire country assumes is target number one. The battery commander doesn't hesitate. His own arithmetic won't let him. Beside the reactor complex, a flat rectangular panel slams upright on its trailer and lights off. That flat panel is the 30N6E2. NATO calls it Tombstone for the shape, and it lit off already half out of time. It sits barely 2 stories off the ground, which buys it nothing past about 25 miles against a target this low. 10 seconds ago, the Hornets were below its horizon. Now they're crossing its face at 8 miles a minute, and every second the commander waits, the lead his computer has to build gets steeper. The textbook window for a shot like this is 40 seconds. He's 30 in. Waiting for a better shot means having to take a worse one. He fires 2, one to force the turn, one to catch it. The missiles punch out of their canisters, boosters tipping them toward the Gulf, roughly $1 million each, leaving the rails at the worst geometry in the book. The S-300 PMU-2's heavy spear, the 48N6E2, is a 4,000-pound interceptor built to bring down aircraft 125 miles out, Los Angeles to San Diego, and 88,000 feet up, 3 times higher than the airliner you flew in last at nearly Mach 6, 4,600 miles an hour. Tombstone steers it the whole way, the missile homing on radar reflections all the way to impact. Its 400-pound fragmentation warhead doesn't need a direct hit. It throws a metal storm through the flight path. Against a target at altitude, it almost never loses. This target is at 200 feet, crossing hard and dropping. What the commander cannot know is that lighting the Tombstone just handed both Hornets his name, his address, and his intent. They catch the launch before the boosters burn out. 3 different tones ring in the lead pilot's helmet, and he knows what fired before his eyes ever find the smoke. You see those small blade antennas along the Hornet's spine and tail fins? They feed the ANALR-67 version 3 radar warning receiver. Caller ID for hostile radar, except the caller is hunting you. The receiver never transmits. It listens across the whole band where military radars live and checks every pulse against a library. Frequency, pulse rate, pulse width, sweep pattern. 4 fingerprints matched in milliseconds. That's how the jet knows the beam on its skin is tombstone and not a fishing boat. Surge sounds like a slow chirp. A lock hardens into a steady pulse. And what's filling his helmet right now is worse, a continuous scream, the beam that a missile is already riding home. That warning buys one thing, the dive. Spear 1-1 rolls, buries the nose, 100 feet, brakes hard against the shot. Both pilots slammed against their harnesses as the sea fills the windscreens, 90 degrees of bank. The horizon gone. 2 missiles closing over open water, and if either arrives with its motor still burning, no turn that a Hornet can pull will matter. The lead missile tears down out of altitude with its motor already dark, and that's why the pilots dove toward the water instead of pulling up and away. A 4.8N6E2 does all its burning in the first 5 seconds off the rail and coasts the rest of the way on stored speed. The dive just dragged the endgame down to sea level, where the air is nearly 3 times thicker at 30,000 feet. Every correction now costs speed the missile can't ever buy back, and the crossing turn is forced to chase made of nothing but corrections. Closure at burnout was almost a mile a second, and by the time it reaches the Hornets, it's down to a third of that, like a sprinter charging off the beach into waist-deep surf. Full speed, and then the legs just stop answering. 4 seconds out. 3. The first missile detonates in their wake, close enough to shove the lead jet sideways. The second punches through air the Hornets have already left and buries itself in the Gulf. Both missed by more than 150 yards. Fragments stopped mattering at 50. That crew took the only shot available, and the shot was bad before it left the rail. Somewhere across the Gulf, an analyst watching the feed writes one line. The battery guarding Iran's crown jewels just spent 2 of its longest arms on a target it couldn't reach. 2 long-range interceptors burned into ocean spray, and Spear 1-1 is still inbound. The evasion bent the run, though. The jets tear across the beach south of the planned axis, rebuilding the route on the fly. Behind them, the S-300 crew is already tearing down to relocate. A battery that just radiated for 2 full minutes is living on borrowed time. And ahead of the Hornets, the radar picture isn't showing Iran anymore. It's showing snow. 60 seconds past the beach, the contact Spear 1-1 was holding out beyond 40 miles erased themselves between sweeps. The snow has an address. In a tree line up the valley, a truck with tall dish antennas is pouring megawatt-class interference into the morning. Cobra V8, Iran's build of Russia's Krashuka-4, and the reason every contact on the Hornet's radar just vanished. The barrage jammer under those dishes floods 8 to 18 gigahertz. The band's fighter radars and targeting sensors live in, out to a claimed 155 miles. One truck throwing a blanket from Detroit to Cleveland, and the fight it picks is rigged. Its noise only travels one way, while a radar echo has to fly out, bounce off a fighter, and crawl all the way home, arriving tens of thousands of times weaker, like a leaf blower blowing against your ear while you listen for a doorbell. The doorbell still rings, your ear just can't find it. Against a jammer this size, a Hornet's 80-mile look at a fighter collapses to a fraction of itself, by design. That truck pays for it. A jammer that loud is a lighthouse, and it just joined the OFO on the American target list. CENTCOM already turned one Cobra V8 into a crater in Khuzestan back in March. The crew in that tree line knows. Their job is to make the bomb stupid, and a stupid bomb aimed at this neighborhood is worth more to Iran than any jet it could ever shoot down, because a crater in the wrong yard rewrites the politics of the entire war. In the lead cockpit, 40 miles of Iran just disappeared. The abort call is sitting right here on the lead pilot's tongue, and the route is still flyable by landmark and stopwatch. He swallows the call and presses in. His wingman only sees the lead hold the line another second, then another. One jet decides, the other trusts him. On a radio nobody will key, that counts as a vote. And both pilots know the nuclear plant is sitting next door like a loaded lawsuit. It isn't free. The rebuilt run bends the long way, throttles back to 300 knots, hugging the dry riverbeds, 40 straight-line miles stretched into 60 by the terrain. Every one of those 60 is flown lower than the power lines these 2 jets crossed half the world to switch off. And the detour is drinking. 20 extra miles down in the weeds cost each Hornet about 700 pounds of fuel it never planned to spend, and the tanker orbiting offshore will not hold past 0625. Bingo fuel, the number where you stop flying the mission and start flying home. 3 deadlines now, and only one of them is on the schedule. 9 minutes from the stacks, the target rises out of the haze. Twin boilers and a long turbine hull, and a building next door that makes this the most delicate aim point of the whole war. Bushehr, Iran's only operating nuclear power plant. Its fence line sits barely a mile from the building these 2 jets came to switch off. It's a thermal power station in the 300-watt mega class. Gas and oil in, 1,000-degree jet of steam through a turbine, electricity out. Enough to keep about 250,000 homes lit. Its power leaves the fence on 3 sets of lines, feeders to the villages of Dashti County, a tie into the regional grid, and 1 dedicated run the planners trace to the military bases of the Bushehr complex. What it doesn't feed is the reactor. The nuclear plant next door has its own grid connection and emergency generators. The fence between the two is electrical as well as political, and that is what makes this target legal. 2 days ago, Iranian missiles hit 2 tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump's promise on the books is 1 power plant or 1 bridge for every ship Iran touches. This station is the invoice. The whole mission lives inside 1 number, the size of the circle a bomb can be trusted to land in, and the truck up the valley is spending megawatts to widen that circle until a legal target and a nuclear disaster fit inside the same one. At this address, somewhere on the property, is not a military plan, it's a congressional hearing with smoke. So the lead pilot runs the math the enemy forced on him. The planned drop line is no longer tight enough, and he drags it closer. 6 miles from the target, 8,000 feet, the bombs lopped off a climb like an underhand throw, arcing the last stretch of their own. Shorter flight, smaller circle, and a much worse neighborhood. The bill is geography. The new drop point sits 9 miles from the Kolgadak military base, inside the reach of somebody's missiles. And at Kolgadak, a battery commander has spent 2 years solving that geometry from the other side of the scope. He saw the UFO find the pair at dawn. He tracked the S-300's long shot as it came apart over the water. His radar hasn't transmitted once, because this campaign has taught Iran's batteries one law: a radar that transmits gets found, and a radar that gets found gets a bomb. He has no way to know the Americans have just decided to fly to him. In his cab, he holds a luxury the S-300 crew on the coast never had: patience. He keeps his radar silent because the first battery to panic becomes the next crater. A stopwatch and a plain understanding of what an American anti-radiation missile does. It rides the radar's own beam down back to the truck that sent it. The transmission is the address. Impatience gets punished like a tax audit with explosives. Any radar looking near the ground has a floor. Ridgeline's throwback returns thousands of times stronger than a fighter's echo, like picking one whispered word out of a packed stadium. So below about 3 degrees, a target simply drowns in the noise. 3 degrees means a different height at every distance. At 12 miles, anything under roughly 3,400 feet stays invisible. He's run this drill so many times his crew can do it blind. For 2 years, it felt like punishment. This morning, it feels like rent coming due, because the arithmetic on his side is beautiful. A Hornet at 100 feet sits a pencil width above his horizon, not a target, scenery. That Hornet at 8,000 feet stands up at 7 degrees, fair sky, easy lock. All he needs is for the Americans to do what the bombs they carry will force them to do anyway: climb. From standby, his array needs only seconds to come alive. A Hornet that runs its throttles up to 480 knots and pulls into a 30-degree climb gains about 420 feet a second. So the trip from 100 feet to a drop height near 8,000 takes roughly 19 seconds. Roughly is carrying a lot of weight in that sentence. 19 seconds is the entire war. Wake the array, build the track, fire, shut down, before anything built to home in on his beam can cross the distance. For the next 7 minutes, Spear 1-1 threads the low ground, invisible to him. Here's the trap in full. The climb the bombs demand is the same climb the ambush demands. The Americans have to serve him his shot to take their own. Both sides have staked the morning on those 19 seconds. Only one of them gets to choose when they start. 90 seconds out, the terrain runs out. Spear 1-1 claws up out of the clutter. 2 jets standing on their tails, trading airspeed for altitude the bombs need. On his headland, the UFO operator watches the 2 tracks he found at dawn finally rise into everybody else's radar. and there's nothing left for him to add. The lead pilot knows what his climb gives every battery on the plane, a stretch of open sky paid in advance. He flies it anyway because a bomb drop below the line lands on a coin flip. 19 seconds. The array at Cholgadak is still dark. Then it isn't. Silence to lock, exactly as advertised. Two missiles scream off the rails a heartbeat apart. Boosters flare over the base, the first time this battery has spoken all war. Khordad 3, Iranian-built, Iranian-crewed. The launcher family that pulled a $220 million American Global Hawk out of the sky over this Gulf in 2019. The X-band panel mounted high on his back found the Hornets, and now it has to feed the intercept. Instead of turning a dish, it steers its beam electronically, fires some elements a nanosecond ahead of the rest, and the beam leans that way. A switch measured in microseconds, no moving parts, which is how one panel can track 100 contacts, fight 4 of them, and keep 2 missiles guided on each. A waiter who never turns his head, but keeps every glass on 4 tables topped up. The mass that survived the campaign on silence just bet everything on staying loud. Tear 2B, the Khordad's interceptor, a solid rocket drives at 65 miles downrange, Miami to West Palm Beach, and 16 miles straight up. And unlike the 48N6 that missed over the Gulf, this missile carries its own radar, a seeker that opens its eyes at the last instant and hunts alone. Behind the nose rides an estimated 150-pound warhead. Shutting the mast down won't call these missiles off. 5, 4, 3. At 0559, both bombs tear off the racks. Positive separation. 2 gray shapes nosing over the top of the loft and starting down. Nobody in Iran gets a vote from here. The commander at Cholgadak sees 2 jets climbing away and 2 missiles closing, and every instinct he has says he's still winning this morning. That $22,000 brain strapped to each falling bomb is the GBU-31 JDAM, the Joint Direct Attack Munition, a guidance kit bolted to a 2,000-pound slab of steel, handing a dumb bomb a satellite map pin and an inertial backup. Clean signal, 16-foot accuracy. Jam the signal and the clock becomes the enemy. Each bomb coasts up over the top and starts down, about 60 seconds from release to impact. So release at 0559 means impact at 0600. Those 60 seconds are a trial, and here's the part that should make the tree line crew sick. The JDAM is a bolt-on kit America orders the way your office orders printer paper, aimed at a custom transformer Iran can't reorder at all. The tail kit checks its last clean satellite fix against the inertial unit inside, a mechanical memory of where it has been and where gravity is taking it. Jamming can yell at the sky all it wants. It can't reach backward in time and change the last good fix. The Cobra crew is still transmitting at full power, shouting at 2 bombs that stopped listening a minute ago. 35 seconds to the first missile, 60 to the first bomb. 2 clocks, 1 patch of sky. The pilots have to survive their own clock to watch the other one pay off. Nose down, brake on. 30 seconds. The Hornets roll off target and pull hard into a beam turn, swinging perpendicular to the radar, the hardest angle it can be asked to solve. 6.5 G stuffs both pilots into their seats, a 200-pound man suddenly weighing 1,300 until the edges of the world go gray. 7 seconds of that, long enough for a helmet to weigh as much as a bowling ball. The missile flies where the jet is going to be, and it can only do that as long as the jet keeps going there. A jet flying straight is doing the missile's homework for it. Brake hard across the nose in the 2 final seconds, though, and the aim point sprints sideways faster than the missile can bend. That's the crack inside proportional navigation. The guidance law every interceptor on Earth runs. A dog cutting the corner to meet you at the gate, right up until you change gates. Down here, the crack widens because sea level air taxes every correction the seeker orders. Behind the lead jet's brake, the first Tear 2B screams through the space the Hornet just vacated and bursts close enough to slap the airframe. 10 seconds later, the second one does the same behind the wingman, spending its fragments on nothing but morning air. Clean misses, both of them. The missiles held their locks all the way in, they simply couldn't bend fast enough, so the fuses spent their violence behind the jets instead of inside them. At Cholgadak, the commander is already spinning down the array. His 19 seconds are gone, and the sky behind his missiles is empty of everything but the smoke trails already bending back toward the deck. Perfect ambush, wrong decade. Above him, 2 bombs are 15 seconds from the ground. At 0600 and 30 seconds, the first GBU-31 rips the station's transformer yard off its concrete pads. 4 seconds behind it, the second punches through the switchgear line and lets go. The blast rolls across the coastal plain and leans a smoke column out over the Gulf, and in the villages below, the lights cut out mid-breakfast. The 2-hour outage Iran's provincial governor will confirm by noon. So why did the bomb skip the building and choose the steel tanks in the yard beside it? Because the aim point was never the biggest roof. It was the smallest legal box on the property, chosen in a targeting cell days ago like a surgeon marking skin before the cut. Drop the pin short and 2 bombs buy Iran a broken parking lot. Long, and it's the evening news from a nuclear site. Those tanks were the only answer that worked, and they were worth 4 surface-to-air missiles to defend. Every watt this station makes has to squeeze through one door, the step-up transformer. A 30-foot steel tank the size of a school bus drowned in 16,000 gallons of insulating oil. A backyard swimming pool of it. That first hit splits the tank and the oil does the rest. The second finishes the breakers behind it, and protection relays slam the station offline in milliseconds because a generator with nowhere to send its current tears itself apart. 2 $22,000 tail kits just turned a custom transformer into a $1 million campfire. Hit the turbine hall and you buy weeks. Hit the yard and you buy a year. Run the receipts. Iran fired 4 interceptors this morning, better than $4 million off the rails, and hit ocean twice and empty sky twice. America spent $44,000 in tail kits and took a year off the grid feeding Bushehr's military complex. That's the exchange rate the American taxpayer has been funding for 30 years, and this is the morning it printed. Spear 11 screams back across the beach 4 minutes later, the smoke behind them rising past the altitude they flew in at. On the headland, Ufa is still turning, and its coordinates are already in tomorrow's folder. So is the tree line. Up the coast, the lights at the nuclear plant never flicker. A Navy strike cut one wire a mile from the most sensitive building in Iran, and the reactor never knew it happened. 2 days earlier, Iran missiles put 2 tankers on the bottom of the Strait of Hormuz. By noon, the invoice was paid, the price list was public, and every commander in Tehran understood that the next ship buys the next grid. If you enjoyed this video, watch what the U.S. Navy did to Iran's Navy when it tried to close the Strait of Hormuz. Bye for now.